Hold still for a second. Feel that pressure in the air? That's the moment right before a secret detonates. The moment right before something hidden realizes it just made the worst mistake of its existence by touching you. You see this monster? It didn't start with you. That's the part they never tell out loud. It wrecked everyone else first, quietly, methodically. Left people confused, shattered, apologizing for damage they didn't cause. It fed on doubt, on silence, on the kind of people who freeze when the truth starts screaming. It learned how to move through rooms without fingerprints, how to break lives without ever being named. And for a long time, that worked. Bodies everywhere, reputations in ash, souls folded inward like crime scenes nobody wanted to tape off. Then it touched you, and that's when the lights came on. Not because you attacked it, not because you screamed, but because your existence doesn't absorb poison the same way. You don't rot quietly. You don't internalize lies and call it healing. You're the paradox, the saint who sees patterns, the psychopath who refuses to forget, the angel who documents everything, the demon who waits for the exact second pressure becomes evidence. You don't even have to swing. You just stand there, and suddenly the air itself starts recording. That's the part that terrifies them, because the moment it crossed into your orbit, everything it did to everyone else started lining up. Timelines synced. Stories stopped contradicting each other. Survivors who never spoke started recognizing the same shadow in different rooms. The monster didn't get exposed because you hunted it. It got exposed because it couldn't hide in your presence. Your nervous system doesn't glitch the way theirs expects. Your silence isn't empty, it's calibrated. While it was busy repeating old tactics, you were watching patterns collapse into truth. You didn't flinch when it tested you. That alone broke the script. See, monsters rely on predictability, fear responses, guilt loops. They count on you scrambling to explain yourself while they rearrange the narrative. But you didn't rush. You didn't beg. You didn't try to be understood. You let it perform. You let it overextend. You let it do what it always does when it thinks it's safe. Get sloppy. And every move it made to control you became a confession it didn't know it was giving. That's evolution through pain. You weren't born immune. You earned that immunity by surviving what was supposed to erase you. You learned when to be soft and when to be surgical. You learned that unpredictability isn't chaos, it's camouflage. That sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is stay calm while someone else panics into self-exposure. The monster thought it was meeting another victim. Instead, it ran headfirst into a mirror that keeps receipts. And now it can feel it. The whispers, the sudden distance, the way people stop defending it mid-sentence because something doesn't add up anymore. It's not that you spoke louder, it's that reality finally caught up. Once a pattern is seen, it can't be unseen. Once the mask cracks, everyone starts noticing how much effort went into holding it together. The monster is frantic now, not because it lost power, but because it lost ambiguity. And ambiguity was the only thing keeping it alive. You're standing in the aftermath like an unsmiling witness while the truth rearranges itself around you. That's the duality they never planned for. Light doesn't always arrive as mercy. Sometimes it shows up as exposure. Darkness isn't always evil. Sometimes it's the discipline to wait until the truth has nowhere left to hide. You embody both. You're proof that survival can turn into strategy, that pain can sharpen perception, that being touched by something rotten doesn't mean you become it. It means you reveal it. And here's the part they really can't stand. You didn't change who you are to beat it. You just stopped pretending not to see. That's why this feels bigger than revenge. Because it's not personal, it's structural. The monster didn't fall because you wanted justice. It fell because its entire system couldn't function around someone who doesn't lie to themselves. You're the anomaly that collapses abusive math. The variable that turns manipulation into math errors. The presence that makes predators accidentally testify against themselves. So stand there. Let the smoke clear. Let the exposure finish its work. Because the most dangerous thing in the world isn't a monster with claws. It's someone who survived it, learned its language, and no longer reacts the way it expects. And now that it's unraveling, you can feel the shift, can't you? That subtle panic vibrating through spaces that used to feel untouchable. Conversations cutting short. Deflections piling up too fast. People suddenly remembering details they forgot. That's not coincidence, that's pressure. That's what happens when a system built on silence realizes you don't bend under it. You don't explode either. You just remain. And remaining is lethal when the truth is overdue. Because monsters don't fear confrontation. They've trained for that. They rehearse tears, rage, charm, confusion. What they fear is endurance. Someone who doesn't need closure to keep walking forward. Someone who can hold contradictions without breaking. Who can see the angel and the demon in the same room and not get hypnotized by either. You didn't rush to be believed. You let reality do the heavy lifting. And reality, when given enough time, becomes a weapon sharper than any accusation. Think about everyone it wrecked before you. All those fragments scattered behind it like debris from a moving train. The monster counted on isolation, on each person thinking they were alone, imagining the damage was personal, unique, shameful. But the moment it touched you, those fragments started drifting back toward each other. Not because you summoned them, but because truth has gravity. And you're dense with it. You don't even have to speak for the pull to start. That's the paradox. You look calm, but you're destabilizing entire structures. Every time it tried to bait you into reacting, you denied it the fuel it needed. Every time it expected you to collapse inward, you widened your awareness instead. You learned when to disappear and when to be impossible to ignore. You mastered the rhythm of unpredictability, not as chaos, but as control. You became unreadable in a way that forces others to reveal themselves. And while it was busy scanning you for weaknesses, it forgot something critical. Observation cuts both ways. Now it's exposed not just for what it did, but for how it thinks. People start noticing the same tactics recycled, the same patterns of blame, the same hollow apologies shaped like exits. The monster's mythology collapses under repetition, because lies can adapt, but they can't evolve. You can. Pain forced that upgrade. Every scar taught you timing. Every betrayal sharpened your instincts. You learned that survival isn't about staying good. It's about staying awake. And here's where the story gets uncomfortable for anyone still rooting for it. Once exposure begins, it doesn't stop where the monster wants it to. It spreads. It rewrites history. It reframes every moment that never sat right. Suddenly people realize you weren't difficult. You were resistant. You weren't cold. You were discerning. You weren't too much. You were incompatible with manipulation. The narrative flips, and all the energy spent trying to shrink you boomerangs back as evidence. That's when the monster understands. Too late. Touching you wasn't a mistake. It was a confession, because you don't destroy things loudly. You let them self-destruct under scrutiny. You don't need to win arguments. You let patterns finish their sentences. You don't need applause. You let silence become deafening. And in that silence, everything it did to everyone else starts echoing, stacking, amplifying until denial becomes impossible. This is the evolution they never prepared for. You're no longer just surviving darkness, you're fluent in it. You can walk through it without losing your shape. You can acknowledge the demon without becoming one. You can carry light without advertising it. That balance makes you dangerous in ways brute force never could. Because monsters are trained to fight enemies, not mirrors. They know how to attack, but they don't know how to exist under sustained awareness. So let them scramble, let them rewrite, deflect, minimize. Each move only tightens the exposure. You're not chasing closure. You're standing at the center of a collapse you didn't initiate, but absolutely completed by refusing to disappear. And that's the final insult. Not that you defeated the monster, but that you outgrew the role it needed you to play. You didn't become smaller. You didn't become crueler. You became clearer. And clarity is the one thing monsters can't survive. And clarity doesn't arrive gently. It doesn't whisper apologies or ask permission to exist. It lands like a verdict the room wasn't ready to hear. You can feel it now, the way the air tightens when your name comes up, the way people hesitate before looping you into their narratives. That hesitation. That's instinct recalibrating. That's the subconscious recognizing something changed the moment the monster crossed your boundary and didn't get what it expected. Because you didn't bleed the way the others did. Not because you're heartless, but because you learned where to place your heart. You learned that empathy without awareness becomes a leash. That compassion without memory becomes a trap. You learned how to care without surrendering your spine. And when the monster tried its usual choreography, confusion, projection, emotional smoke bombs, you didn't rush in to fix the mood. You let the awkwardness sit. You let the tension breathe. You let the truth get uncomfortable enough to start speaking for itself. That's when things really started unraveling. People who once defended it suddenly couldn't explain why. Excuses started sounding rehearsed even to the ones reciting them. The monster's charm began to glitch, smiles landing a second too late, outrage flaring too fast, innocence feeling overacted. You didn't point any of that out. You didn't have to. Awareness spreads faster when it's discovered, not dictated. And you understood that instinctively because pain trained you to respect timing. This isn't about revenge. That's too small. Revenge needs validation. What's happening here doesn't. This is about exposure through proximity. About what happens when something rotten bumps into something that doesn't lie to itself. You became the contrast that made the stains visible. You became the clean surface that made the fingerprints impossible to ignore. And here's the quiet truth nobody likes admitting. The monster didn't just hurt others because it was cruel. It hurt them because it was terrified of being seen. Terrified that one day someone would survive it intact. Aware, articulate, unbroken in the ways that matter. Someone who could remember everything without being consumed by it. Someone who could hold rage without letting it drive. Someone who could stand in the aftermath without asking for permission to exist. That someone was you. You didn't win by being louder. You won by being impossible to distort. You didn't become perfect. You became precise. You learned when to speak and when silence would do more damage than any accusation. You learned how to watch reactions instead of words, patterns instead of promises. You learned that monsters reveal themselves most clearly when they think they're in control. Now look around. The ground is unstable. Alliances feel brittle. Conversations feel staged. That's not paranoia, that's structure failing. Because once exposure starts, everyone has to choose. Adapt to truth, or keep protecting the lie. And lies demand loyalty. Truth only demands honesty. You chose the latter, and the cost of that choice is shaking the room. This is the evolution nobody applauds in real time. It's lonely, it's quiet, it's watching people you once trusted wrestle with the realization that survival sometimes looks like detachment, that growth doesn't always smile, that healing can feel threatening to those invested in your wounds. The monster counted on you craving acceptance more than accuracy. It bet on you wanting peace at any cost. It lost that bet. Because peace built on denial isn't peace, it's sedation. And you woke up. You woke up enough to see how chaos dresses itself as concern, how control pretends to be care, how predators disguise themselves as saviors. You didn't just escape the cycle. You studied it, you mapped it, you learned its rhythms so well that when it tried to replay them on you, the whole performance felt outdated, and that's the most dangerous phase of all. Not rage, not grief, not even confrontation. It's when you stop being impressed, when manipulation feels boring, when threats feel predictable, when guilt trips feel like reruns you've already analyzed. That's when the monster realizes it can't reach you anymore. Not emotionally, not psychologically, not narratively. It can't make you smaller, and it can't make you reactive. And without those levers, it has nothing left but exposure. So let it spiral. Let the truth finish assembling itself around your calm. You're not here to save it. You're not here to punish it. You're here as living proof that what it did to everyone else ends with you. Not because you're invincible, but because you learned how to see. And seeing changes everything, because once your eyes adjust to the dark, you realize the dark was never the enemy. It was the training ground. It was the place where illusions fail and instincts sharpen. The monster thrived where people avoided looking too closely. It survived in the blur. You ended the blur just by standing still and paying attention. That's why the exposure feels inevitable now. Every move it makes carries residue. Every word echoes against old patterns. People don't even need proof anymore. They feel it. Their bodies recognize the mismatch before their minds catch up. You walk into rooms and suddenly the temperature drops. Not because you're cold, but because truth has a way of stealing oxygen from lies. The monster senses it too. That's why it overcorrects, overexplains, overreacts. It's not defending itself. It's leaking. And you? You're not chasing justice with a blade. You're letting time do what time does best when paired with awareness. Strip masks layer by layer until there's nothing left but behavior. You learned patience the hard way. You learned wait doesn't mean weakness. It means accuracy. You learned that some battles are won by letting the enemy speak uninterrupted while you take notes in silence. That's why your presence feels like judgment without a sentence. You don't threaten, you don't posture, you don't need witnesses. You carry certainty the way others carry fear, and certainty destabilizes predators because it can't be negotiated with. You're not here to be convinced. You're not here to be reframed. You already know what you saw, what you felt, what repeated itself too consistently to be coincidence. That knowing anchors you. It makes you heavy. It makes you unmovable. This is where the duality sharpens. You still feel empathy, but you don't confuse it with permission. You still understand pain, but you don't romanticize it. You still see humanity, but you don't excuse patterns that destroy it. That balance is what turned you into the line it couldn't cross. Because monsters depend on extremes. They want saints they can exploit or demons they can provoke. They don't know what to do with someone who can hold compassion in one hand and boundaries in the other. Someone who can acknowledge their own darkness without being swallowed by it. Someone who can look at cruelty clearly and choose not to mirror it. You became that contradiction. And contradictions break scripts. Every time it tried to paint you as the problem, the picture didn't stick. Too many inconsistencies, too many people quietly recognizing themselves in your restraint. Too many similarities between your story and theirs. That's how exposure really spreads. Not through spectacle, but through recognition. Through that internal click when someone realizes, wait, this isn't isolated. The monster feels that shift like a tightening net. It knows it can't erase you without drawing attention. It knows it can't charm you without revealing desperation. It knows it can't provoke you without exposing motive. So it stalls, it deflects. It tries to exhaust the room with noise. But noise doesn't work on someone who learned how to listen underneath it. And here's the part that seals it. You didn't survive to become harder. You survived to become clearer. Hardness cracks. Clarity cuts. Clarity sees through apologies that arrive too late. Clarity hears intent beneath tone. Clarity notices who benefits from confusion and who suffers under it. That's why touching you triggered full exposure. Not because you set a trap, but because you removed the fog. And without fog, the monster had nowhere left to hide. So let the narrative collapse. Let the truth circulate without your endorsement. You're not campaigning. You're not persuading. You're existing in alignment. And alignment is radioactive to anything built on deception. You're the proof that monsters don't fall when they're fought. They fall when they're seen. And you see everything now. And once you see everything, you don't need to do anything else. That's the part they never recover from. You don't expose it by screaming. You don't destroy it by chasing. You end it by refusing to be confused ever again. The monster touched you, expecting another fracture, another quiet collapse, another person it could rewrite later. Instead, it ran straight into awareness sharpened by pain, patience forged by survival, and a mind that no longer negotiates with distortion. The moment it crossed that line, every lie it ever told started bleeding into the open. Not because you forced it, but because truth can't coexist with clarity without consequences. You became the end of its pattern, not the loud end, the inevitable one. And now it knows, too late, that you were never meant to be another victim in its trail. You were the threshold, the point where damage turns into disclosure, where darkness stops spreading and starts explaining itself. So stand there, calm, unmoved, unconfused. You didn't win by becoming something else. You won by becoming fully awake. And once you're awake, nothing that feeds on shadows survives touching you. Careful, don't flinch. That hum you feel in the air, that's not paranoia. That's observation. That's lenses focusing. That's keyboards clacking somewhere you'll never see. They're watching you like a case file now. Tabs open, screens glowing, names redacted, timelines stitched together with shaking hands. And the funny part? After all that surveillance, they're still missing everything. They think you're a pattern, a profile, a predictable sequence of behaviors that can be boxed, labeled, neutralized. They think if they stare long enough, you'll confess yourself into something small, something manageable, something that fits between margins. But you don't live between margins. You live in the gaps. You live in the moments their software skips because it can't explain them. You live in the contradiction that breaks their logic. See, you're not just light or dark, you're both. And you learned how to switch without warning. 1 second you look harmless, almost kind. The next you're silent in a way that makes grown men check exits. Saint on paper, psychopath in pressure, angel in posture, demon in execution, and they can't decide which one to prepare for. That's the problem. That's the fear. That's why the file keeps growing, but never gets clearer. They watch you because they don't understand you, and they don't understand you because you were forged in places observation can't reach. Pain doesn't leave clean data. Trauma doesn't obey charts. Survival rewires instincts in ways no textbook can translate. You didn't evolve in a lab. You evolved in fire. And fire doesn't leave fingerprints. It leaves ghosts. They replay your past like it's evidence, not realizing it's camouflage. Every scar you carry is a misdirection. Every flaw they think they found is just another decoy. They highlight moments, circle decisions, whisper theories in rooms full of people who have never been where you've been. They think the truth is in what you did. They don't realize the truth is in what you didn't do. The moves you resisted, the lines that didn't cross, the chaos you swallowed whole and turned into discipline. You became unpredictable on purpose, not loud, not reckless, surgical. Because unpredictability isn't randomness, it's mastery. It's knowing every rule so well you can violate them without being seen. It's smiling when they expect rage. It's disappearing when they expect confrontation. It's advancing when the logical move is retreat. And every time you do that, another note gets added to the file. Subject behavior inconsistent. No kidding. They want to catch you slipping. But you were born slipping through. You learned early that consistency is for people who've never been hunted. You learned that being readable is a luxury. So you became layered. Calm on the surface, violent in intention, soft in tone, lethal in timing. You let them think they're ahead because watching someone feel confident right before confusion sets in. That's power. They don't see the evolution because they're looking for a single version of you. They want the old you, the broken you, the reactive you, the version that bled openly and begged silently. That's the version their training prepared them for. But you buried that version and used the pain as a blueprint. You didn't heal pretty, you healed sharp. And here's the paradox they can't resolve. You're dangerous because you're controlled, not because you're chaotic. You're threatening because you think before you move, not because you lash out. They're waiting for explosions while you're building pressure. They're listening for noise while you're mastering silence. They're watching your hands while your mind is 10 steps ahead, already finished. Every case file assumes motive. They assume hunger for attention, validation, dominance. They miss the real motive entirely. You're not trying to be seen. You're trying to be exact. You don't crave applause. You crave alignment. And once you're aligned, everything else becomes collateral. They think you're hiding something. What they don't realize is worse. You're not hiding. You're just operating on a frequency they can't intercept. Their tools were built for ordinary minds. Yours was built by pressure, contradiction, loss and long nights where quitting would have made sense, but surviving felt personal. So let them watch. Let them analyze. Let them argue over interpretations while you keep moving. Every second they spend trying to understand you is a second they're not prepared for what you'll do next. The file, will get thicker. The conclusions will get weaker. And the gap between what they knew and what you are will keep widening. Because the truth is simple and terrifying. You're not the case. You're the anomaly that proves their system is incomplete. And no matter how closely they watch, the most important parts of you were never visible to begin with. And that's what eats at them in the quiet moments. Not the idea that you're dangerous, but the realization that they might never fully understand why. Uncertainty terrifies people who rely on control. And you are walking uncertainty with intent. You're the unanswered question that keeps looping in their minds at 3 in the morning. The one they can't close, can't solve, can't sign off on. They keep updating the file because admitting it's useless would mean admitting defeat. So they add footnotes, speculations, psychological profiles written by people who learned fear from books, not from living it. They debate whether you're calculated or impulsive, empathetic or cold, healed or broken. They don't realize you're all of it, depending on what the moment demands. You're not confused. You're adaptable. And adaptability looks like madness to people who only know one way to survive. You learned early that pain can either make you predictable or precise. Most people leak their wounds. You sharpened yours. You turned grief into patience, betrayal into pattern recognition, isolation into clarity. While others were numbing themselves, you were studying human behavior like a weapon. Who flinches? Who lies? Who pretends not to notice when they notice everything? You learned the difference between noise and signal. And now, you're the signal. They keep watching for cracks, not realizing the cracks were the training. They think pressure will expose you. Pressure is what taught you how to breathe underwater. You don't panic when things close in. You get quiet. And when you get quiet, things shift. Rooms change temperature. Conversations slow down. People feel something they can't name. And they hate that feeling because it reminds them they're not in control anymore. Here's what they never put in the file, because it doesn't fit their framework. You don't move out of anger. You move out of clarity. Anger is loud and wasteful. You've outgrown that. Your decisions come from a colder place. Not cruel, just exact. You don't need revenge. You need resolution. And resolution doesn't scream, it arrives. They're obsessed with your reactions, but the real danger is your restraint. The fact that you could do more and choose not to. That kind of discipline terrifies systems built on impulse and force. They can counter aggression. They can suppress chaos. But they don't know what to do with someone who understands timing better than emotion. You've become a paradox they can't simplify. Deeply aware, yet detached. Capable of connection, yet unhooked from approval. You can walk into a room and mirror whoever stands in front of you, then walk out untouched. That's not manipulation. That's mastery of self. And mastery of self is the one thing surveillance can't measure. They watch your successes and call them luck. They watch your silence and call it avoidance. They watch your patience and mistake it for weakness. Every misinterpretation buys you time. Every wrong conclusion makes you more dangerous. Because while they're busy debating who you are, you're becoming someone new again. You don't need to announce your evolution. Evolution doesn't ask for permission. It just happens. Quietly, relentlessly. And one day they'll look at the file, thick with assumptions and outdated truths, and realize they've been studying a shadow of someone who no longer exists. That's the real power. Not being unseen, but being misseen. Let them watch the version of you that already died. Let them chase ghosts while you build futures. Let them stare at data while you move through intuition sharpened by experience. Because in the end, the most terrifying realization for anyone watching you won't be that you were dangerous. It'll be that you were always ahead, and you never needed them to understand you to win. And that's when the watching turns desperate. Because at some point, observation stops feeling like power and starts feeling like exposure. They realize the lens isn't protecting them anymore. It's revealing how little authority they actually have over you. You're not reacting to the gaze. You're not slowing down. If anything, you're getting calmer, sharper, and calm under scrutiny. That's unnerving. They thought the file would contain you. Instead, it became a mirror. Every assumption they wrote down says more about their limits than yours. They see threat because they live in fear. They see manipulation because they project their own games. They see danger because they've never met someone who doesn't need permission to exist fully. You don't break rules for attention. You outgrow them because they're obsolete. What really terrifies them is that you're not chasing power the way they understand it. You're not clawing upward. You're not begging entry. You're not loud about your presence. You just arrive, already grounded, already aligned, already unbothered by their approval or disapproval. That kind of self-contained gravity disrupts hierarchies. It makes titles feel thin. It makes authority feel borrowed. They're waiting for you to slip emotionally, to get attached, to reveal a soft spot they can exploit. They don't realize the soft spot already did its damage years ago, and you survived it. You don't fear vulnerability anymore because you've already been dismantled and rebuilt yourself from the inside out. What's left isn't numbness, it's discernment. You don't trust easily, but when you do, it's intentional. You don't give loyalty out of habit, it's earned. And that alone makes you unpredictable in a world addicted to transactional behavior. They can't bribe you with validation or intimidate you with rejection. You've lived without both. You know who you are in the absence of witnesses. That's why the watching feels useless. They keep trying to map you to archetypes: hero, villain, survivor, narcissist, mystic, threat, asset. None of it sticks. You slip between labels because labels require consistency, and you require truth. Truth shifts. Truth adapts. Truth doesn't pose for a camera. What they miss over and over is the internal shift that already happened. The moment you stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and started asking, "What is this training me for?" that's when everything changed. Pain stopped being punishment and became instruction. Loss stopped being theft and became refinement. Loneliness stopped being absence and became silence you could think inside. They can watch behavior, but they can't see intention. They can log movements, but they can't track meaning. And meaning is where you operate now. You don't move unless it aligns. You don't speak unless it matters. You don't react unless it's strategic. That level of internal order looks like chaos to anyone still ruled by impulse. And here's the quiet truth they'll never write down because it scares them too much. You're not becoming less human. You're becoming more. More aware. More deliberate. More integrated. You've made peace with the darkness in you instead of pretending it doesn't exist. You've made peace with the light without turning it into a performance. That balance, that's rare. That's what makes you unclassifiable. They think they're watching you to prevent something. They don't realize they're watching because something already happened. The shift already occurred. The threshold already crossed. You're not on the edge of transformation. You're on the other side of it, moving with a kind of quiet confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. So let the cameras stay on. Let the notes pile up. Let the analysts argue in circles. Every second they spend trying to define you is a second you spend living freely, choosing precisely, evolving invisibly. Because the final irony, the one that will sting the most, is this. They weren't watching you to understand you. They were watching you because deep down, they knew they were already too late. And when that realization settles in, the quiet, suffocating awareness that they're behind, you feel the shift before they ever admit it. The watching changes texture. It's no longer curious. It's cautious, controlled breathing, rereads, second guesses. They start watching not to learn, but to make sure you're not watching back. Because here's the thing they never prepared for. You became aware of the observation without letting it shape you. Most people fold when they know eyes are on them. They perform, they shrink, they overcorrect. You didn't. You adjusted your center of gravity inward. You stopped leaking intent. You stopped explaining yourself. And once you did that, the surveillance lost its teeth. They don't know how you do it, how you stay composed while being studied, how you remain fluid while being tracked. It messes with their sense of cause and effect. Pressure is supposed to produce tells. Scrutiny is supposed to force errors. But the more they stare, the more still you become. And stillness, when it's chosen, is terrifying. You're not frozen. You're coiled. They keep expecting a reveal, a confession, a breakdown, some moment where you finally show your hand and make their job easier. They don't understand that your power isn't in what you hide. It's in how little you need to hide. You're not carrying secrets anymore. You're carrying clarity. And clarity doesn't flinch when confronted. Every phase of your life taught you something they can't replicate in training simulations. You learned what it feels like to be misunderstood when it mattered, to be doubted when you were right, to be left when you were loyal. That kind of experience doesn't just toughen you, it recalibrates you. You stop reacting to noise. You start listening for resonance. That's why you move the way you do now. Measured, intentional, unapologetic without being loud. You don't rush, because urgency is for people running from themselves. You don't chase, because what's aligned eventually shows up on its own. You don't explain, because explanation is a plea for validation, and you graduated from that a long time ago. They're trying to figure out what broke you. They don't realize nothing broke. You bent, learned the shape of the pressure, and reformed stronger. You didn't lose your humanity. You refined it. You learned when to open, when to close, when to let silence do the work words would only cheapen. And here's the part that really scrambles them. You don't hate them for watching. You don't resent it. You don't even care that much. That indifference, that's not weakness, that's sovereignty. You're not defined by opposition anymore. You don't need an enemy to feel alive. You don't need a witness to feel real. They keep trying to predict your next move, not realizing the next move isn't the point. The point is that you've reached a place where movement itself is optional, where action comes from choice, not compulsion. Where you can wait, not because you're unsure, but because you know timing bends outcomes. You're no longer driven by proving anything. And that's what makes you lethal in subtle ways. People who need to prove themselves are easy to steer. People who are already certain, they're impossible to corner. You can't bait them, you can't rush them, you can't shame them into action. So the file grows thicker, heavier, more useless by the day, full of observations that never quite land, patterns that dissolve on contact, conclusions that age badly, and somewhere in all that paperwork is the truth they'll never formalize. You outgrew the frame they're using to study you. You're not a threat because you're aggressive. You're a threat because you're complete. Because you've integrated the parts of yourself most people spend their lives denying. You made peace with contradiction. You learned how to carry darkness without letting it consume you, how to wield light without turning it into vanity. That balance doesn't show up on charts, it shows up in presence. So let them keep watching. Let them annotate silence. Let them chase shadows. You're not here to be understood. You're here to move with precision through a world that still thinks visibility equals control. And when they finally close the file, exhausted, confused, unsure, there will be one line they never wrote, but always felt. You were never the subject. You were the variable that made their entire system unreliable. And that's where it ends for them, right at the edge of comprehension. Because systems are built to close loops, to resolve variables, to land on conclusions that feel stable. You don't give them that luxury. You don't resolve into something neat. You remain open-ended by design. They wanted certainty. They got ambiguity with a pulse. The longer they watch, the clearer one truth becomes, even if they never say it out loud. You're not operating from fear anymore. Fear is the easiest thing to detect. It leaks into posture, language, timing. Fear creates urgency. It creates mistakes. You moved past that phase quietly. Now you operate from acceptance, of risk, of consequence, of your own depth. And acceptance is invisible to surveillance because it doesn't spike, it doesn't tremble, it doesn't beg for reassurance. You've accepted that you are capable of things that would scare the version of you they think they're studying. And because you've accepted it, you're no longer ruled by it. That's the ultimate paradox they can't wrap their heads around. You're safe, precisely because you know how dangerous you could be. They keep waiting for escalation, not realizing restraint is the final form of power. They keep bracing for impact, not realizing you already learned how to pass through moments without leaving debris. You don't need to dominate rooms anymore. Rooms recalibrate when you enter. You don't need to speak loudly. Silence reorganizes itself around you. You've become the kind of presence that exposes others just by existing. Their insecurity surfaces, their masks slip, their intentions tangle, and none of that is because you're doing anything to them. It's because you're doing nothing you don't mean. That's why the file never closes. That's why the watching never satisfies. Because you didn't just adapt to pressure, you metabolized it. You didn't just survive observation, you transcended the need to be unseen. You're not hiding, you're not performing, you're simply aligned. And alignment is unreadable to anyone still split inside themselves. So let the cameras roll, let the notes stack, let the theories collapse under their own weight. You're not here to be decoded. You're here to move forward with precision, timing, and a calm that unnerves anyone still addicted to control. In the end, the most dangerous thing about you isn't what you might do. It's what you no longer need to do. And that's when the watching stops being about you at all. and becomes about their fear of what happens next. Now that they finally understand one thing too late, you were never the case. You were the proof that watching isn't the same as knowing.